But what we always say is that with hospice is that it's a gift. Life is precious. Life is short. Eventually we're all gonna, face death at some point. The main thing that we hear the most is that they wish they would have done it sooner.
Today, we're talking about hospice care, a part of medicine that many people don't think about until they need it. Hospice workers support patients and families during the end of life, focusing on comfort, dignity, and presence. In this episode, we'll explore what that care really looks like and what it teaches you about life. Today, I'm joined by Casey from Grace and Glory Hospice. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, Milan. I'm Casey. I am the volunteer coordinator with Grace and Glory Hospice.
Awesome. So, my first question is for someone hearing the word hospice for the first time, what does it actually mean?
Well, see, that's what we always talk about. When people hear the word hospice, they always immediately think about death. That's the minute that, and actually, I think back in the day when I was in college, when we learned about hospice, I always thought it would be like the last week of life. And people would come in and take care of somebody the last week of life. And what I've learned now from working with hospice that that's not completely true. That you can be on hospice for a considerable amount of time. We have hospice patients that are on for over a year. But some hospice patients are on shorter. Patients can even graduate from hospice. But so that's why we kind of think that hospice can be a scary word, because if a doctor or somebody else suggests that maybe a family member or loved one needs to go on hospice, they think, no, because that means that they're going to die. And we don't want our family member to go on hospice because then they're going to die. But what we always say is that with hospice is that it's a gift, because you get all of this love and all of this help and all this resources to help you in a challenging time.
Okay, so hospice doesn't automatically mean death. It just means
No,
it's
no,
some help and love and companionship.
exactly.
So, what happens when someone enters hospice for the first time?
When they first go on hospice, they're going to be assigned an RN, and that RN can come maybe once a week, or they can come 3 times a day, depends. And they will go to where, so this is one of the big things with hospice that people, I think, don't always understand the most. And at least this is the way it's in California, is that we do not house hospice patients. We don't have like a big facility and that's where everybody goes. Hospice means bringing the patient home. So wherever their home is. So if your loved one is still living in the house that they've always lived in, the nurse will come to their house. They may be living in assisted living. They may go back and live with the family member. They could live in independent living. Wherever they live is where their RN is going to go to. So they get a nurse. They get a social worker. Social worker is going to make sure that they have all their funeral arrangements made. Are they getting the care that they need? Does the family know what's going on? All that kind of stuff is taken care of. They get a home health aide. Home health aide is going to come in and give them their bath. And they go to wherever the patient is. So if anybody were doing those jobs and they work for hospice, you drive to where the patient is. They're not like in one location. So they come and give them their bath. We always call it their spa day, their beauty treatment. And then we have chaplains. So chaplains could come in if they want and talk and visit, socialize, and same thing with companionship volunteers. So if you want to, and not everybody in hospice gets one, but a good portion of our patients get a hospice volunteer, and it's just companionship, or it could be respite, which would be relief for a caretaker. So you can imagine a caretaker never wants to leave anybody alone, so they would have a volunteer come in, hang out for a little bit. They can run errands, go to the grocery store, but they don't do any care. And so, and then they also have volunteers that play music too, or do some type of entertainment. But so everybody goes to wherever the hospice patient is, because yes, that's a big one where everyone's like, oh, where do you keep everybody? They go home, and that's the blessing of hospice, is that they get to go home.
Yeah. So, what does hospice actually look like day to day in your experience?
So day to day would be they get admitted, they get to go home, they Once you come on our program, you can get also they get equipment. So if they needed oxygen, they can have oxygen delivered to their home, which makes a big difference because a lot of times people have to go to the hospital to get their breathing treatments. So it's a blessing that they can stay home and breathe. I know that sounds silly, but it isn't always so. And that's one of the things with hospice. They can get a hospital bed, which makes it a lot easier for them to get up and down and move around. They can get a wheelchair if needed. They can get a walker. They can get a shower chair. So a lot of supplies that they wouldn't have normally. And that's why they couldn't be at home because they didn't have all those supplies. They also get incontinence supplies, and they get their primary diagnosis medication. So the first day they would probably be getting all their equipment moved in. They would get you always get a free evaluation first to find out if you can qualify for hospice, and it has to be an order from a doctor. So anybody can't say, "Oh, I think they should be on hospice." No, you have to have an order from a doctor, and then you can come on hospice. And so the first day to day would be they'd probably get a visit from their nurse. Then they'd probably have their home health would be scheduled. Usually maybe it's like 2 or 3 times a week they come in. And then eventually once they get settled in, then they'll get their volunteer visit.
Okay. So, what are services that people don't usually know that are provided by hospice care?
Well, that's the big one is probably, I would say, the equipment. A lot of people don't realize that they get, and that it's no cost to the patient too. That's a big one too, is that um, it's if you can qualify for Medicare A or B, then you all hospice is free. So that's a huge relief for families. So we can have someone that's been living in independent living, and they start declining. They start having some falls. They get a note from you. They get a evaluation from a doctor, and they're eligible for hospice. And then they can start getting a lot of supplies. They can start getting equipment that they needed. So that's a big thing. I think that a lot of people don't know that they get to live at home too. A lot of people think that we house them, and no hospice in California houses them.
Okay. And so, hospice sounds really fantastic, but who pays for hospice? Like, will the family have to?
Well,
Or,
yeah, that's that. If they qualify, and it's Medicare A and B, is that right, Lydia? Mm-hmm. That's our office manager, so she does a lot more of that than I do. But yes, you need to be qualified for. And is it always just Medicare? Is there anything else? Is it just A and B?
Yeah, there's also different insurances like Alameda Alliance.
Or so different insurances, Alameda Alliance, or some other insurances. So if they have any questions about what insurance they're on, they can see. But the main one usually is Medicare.
okay. So, what's the hardest part of hospice care for patients or families?
Um, Probably the hardest part with hospice is with families, and so our social workers and our nurses do a lot of educating. We do talk about. You have to realize that if they're going on hospice, there is a good chance that they are going to pass away. Not immediately. We have patients that have been on well over a year. We have patients that graduate, believe it or not. So to qualify for hospice, usually one of the things that people would look for would be if they were being admitted to the hospital a lot. So if they're going to the emergency room a lot, if they're declining, they're having falls. We had one particular patient that she was having trouble breathing. She would go to the doctor. They would admit her for the weekend, oxygenate her, and then she'd come back home. But then she couldn't breathe again. By Friday, she'd be right back to the hospital. So she needed her oxygen so she could come home. So that's one of the main things. Like it's just quality of life. When they go on hospice, they're not doing preventative treatments. So usually they're not doing dialysis. They won't be doing chemo. They won't be doing surgeries. If they want to do preventative treatments, then they would go off hospice, go have that done, and then if they come back on, they come back. So we're not doing preventative stuff anymore. We're just having a good quality of life, pain free, and that's one of the things that they will revoke hospice if they choose to do preventative treatments. But usually at this point, they're kind of tired of going to the doctor. They've gone enough and they just want to live their life and enjoy the time that they have left, which can be quite a while with good care.
Okay. And so there's also this other term, palliative care. What's the difference between palliative care and hospice? Because they seem to.
Good question. And Grace and Glory now does palliative care too. So with palliative care, they can still continue to do their preventative treatments. It's kind of like we're just keeping an eye on them, but we're not doing full treatment. So they would probably have a nurse come in maybe once a month and see how things are going. They wouldn't have a social worker or home health care. They wouldn't have a volunteer. So it's kind of, they're getting a little bit of a help, but they're not ready for hospice. So they would still be doing everything they're doing, but we're just kind of watching them. We're just kind of supporting them without all of the whole hospice care. So it's kind of, I guess it's hospice light, I guess is what we'll call it. It's, yeah, the beginning step. They're not quite ready for hospice, but they're getting there.
Okay. So you're around death a lot. I mean, patients usually once they enter hospice, they sometimes might pass away.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you emotionally handle this kind of work every day?
See, now I just came running back from Memorial. So this was our beautiful Pearl. Pearl, we actually just had a big party for her. She turned 101 last August. So we were all hoping for another big party for her being 102. It's a lot of love. I think it reminds you that life is precious, that life is short. But I mean, we're all gonna, face death at some point. And I think you just kind of have to look at it as just a good reminder to enjoy every single day. And it's enjoyable. Our patients are wonderful. They're just people, just like you and I. And they just need a little bit of help and a little bit of love. So I think it's just kind of going into that. We don't walk in saying, oh, this patient's got to die, because everybody's got to die. So it's not really that way. We just walk in knowing it's just somebody, hey, we got a new friend to meet. And that's it.
So, would you say you've like valued your life more and you've sort of enjoyed everything being around death so often?
I think just being around people, it's brought so many different people into my life. Um, and I love to hear their stories. I mean, one of the ladies her 1924 is when she was born. Do you know the kind of stories they have in the family and just what they've seen? It's just amazing. And that's, the blessing. So, no, I mean, there's no guarantee any of us are going to live any certain amount of time. So we can't look at it like that. They're just people. And
So
that's it.
we have to be happy with what we have right now.
And there's no guarantee. No guarantee at all. Now, with our hospice, tends to make it, and this is just as of right now, we don't do children for hospice, but other hospices do. And that, I think, would be a whole nother layer of challenge. But I think the youngest patient we've ever had is 29. But most of ours are 60 and up. And we have had 50, but not a lot. So that would be a whole nother conversation. Dealing with younger hospice patients, I think, would be a challenge that I have not had to face yet.
So, what does child hospice look like? I think that's a little less well known than.
That would be a whole nother subject because we don't have it. But I'm sure hospice is hospice, but obviously it would be a younger person with, an incurable disease. So, yeah.
So, has there been an interaction with the patient that left a lasting impact on you?
Oh, absolutely. They're your friends. They definitely, they become your friends, and you go and visit them. And like I said, if we only had them for like a week, you wouldn't develop that relationship. But when you go and visit them, 2 or 3 times a month for well over a year, they're your friend, and you kind of take off where you get to, you you talk to them, you spend a good hour and a half with somebody, or not all. I mean, like, I don't make our volunteers stay that long, but it happens. You get to caught up in your conversations, and they change your life. Well, still, oh, remember so and so said this, or like they're your friends is what it is, and that's all it is you're visiting another friend. And so they change your life. You'll just remember little things they said, just like you would about anybody else or your very own loved one. Sometimes you feel guilty, you're like, I'm thinking about all these other people, and maybe not always the family members that you've lost, because they all touch you in different ways. So it's challenging, but it's rewarding.
I see. Are there any bad stereotypes associated with hospice?
I don't think. I mean, I think the biggest stereotype is that people don't want to put their loved one on because that means that they're going to die. But it's going to happen anyway. So why not? If you know that, I mean, we have patients, they're well into their 90s, they're declining, they're falling. The main thing that we hear the most is that as much as they don't want to put a loved one on hospice, is that they wish they would have done it sooner. When they realize all the help and all the resources and the support that they get, they're like, as much as we didn't want to do this, I wish we would have done it sooner. Because they don't want to put their loved one on hospice, but then it just makes life so much easier for the families and for the patients.
So is it like they're thinking if they're on hospice, they're going to die really quickly and it's going to end
Or
right
just
away?
in general, it's their loved one. Um, like the one we just, one of our patients passed away and she was 100, almost 102. It's not long enough. We still want them here and we don't want to lose them. And so, yeah, we're like, okay, well, maybe if we don't, like they know it's going to happen. But they don't want to put them on hospice, even though it's just a good thing, but it's a scary word. So that's where we're always like, oh, we can just change the word from hospice, and they need to know that it's not a scary word, it's a gift.
Okay. What would you say to someone who is afraid of losing a loved one?
Yeah, that's a challenging one. What are we going to say, Lydia? I know. I know. It's hard.
It is hard.
It is hard. You know what? I was going to say, where are our yellow books? Do you have any right here, Lydia?
I think I have.
We have some really good support books for families and loved ones that help them. Thanks. So this one is like My Friend I Care. Oh, here, and this one too, Gone Before My Sight. And we have their little books that kind of give them ways of grieving and things. So we kind of that's one of the things with hospice too, is that we do prepare the families. We do prepare everybody. They have to know that, that's most likely going to be an end result at some point, even if you graduate. I mean, we just don't live forever. That just isn't going to happen. So that's where our chaplain comes in and gives a lot of support to the families. Even after they pass away, they're still going to check in weeks, months, years afterwards. Same with the social workers. We just need them to know that we're always here to talk to. There's a lot of support groups that they can go to. Yeah, there isn't. I wish there was like one sentence or one word that would make everything all better and they wouldn't miss their loved ones so much. But unfortunately, there just isn't.
Okay. What is a chaplain? What is their role?
That would be, well, ours happens to be a Christian chaplain, and he is there to, actually, he baptized one of our patients. She hadn't been, very religious, and she decided that she wanted to be baptized. And so we had a little party at there where they lived at a board and care, and they, blessed her with the water, and she had to say, that she was, going to be willing to be with God. But it doesn't, even when like Pastor Jeff comes out and he happens to be a Christian pastor, but sometimes he just plays the role as volunteer. He's just one more visit, just one more support. He'll come in and talk about anything you want to talk about. You want to talk about plants or cars or whatever, that they like to talk about. It's just one more, or sometimes they want to because they want that spirit out, they want to pray. And even our volunteers are allowed to pray with permission with their patients if that's what the family and the patients want.
I see. If a teen listening wants to get involved in hospice, what are some ways they can volunteer or help?
Well, we do, if they want to volunteer, I say that they have to be 18. But like I said, that isn't necessarily true. That's normally the rule. They have to be 18. If they're below 18, they need to be with an adult. So usually their parents or an older sibling can volunteer, but they all have to go through the volunteer process. And is that what you're asking me about, like the qualifications to volunteer, or am I jumping the gun?
Just in general, what are if there's other ways a teen can just help out, maybe a loved one or someone who's nearing.
Yeah, if they want to volunteer, usually they do need to be 18, or they need to have somebody else volunteer with them. And then we literally just come in. Now, there are other things they can do. We always suggest, like, if they wanted to make like fidget blankets, or if they have a musical ability, you can come in and we can have you play the piano at one of the facilities. They would love that. Guitar, sing, um, any type of musical ability, any type of entertainment would be so beneficial.
I see. Well, that was a very informative episode. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, and I always tell everybody, if they do want to volunteer, please reach out. We just kind of teach them about hospice. It's flexible. It doesn't take too much of your time. Um, and I think that's about it.
Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Thank